viewers to This Is Your Life. Our special guest today is Kelly Burke. Kelly, welcome to This Is Your Life.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kelly is just a good old hometown boy. He has got quite a story, and it blessed me, and I believe it's going to bless you too. Kelly, when did you first come to the Lord briefly?
Well, I was born a preacher's son. So actually my mom and my dad moved here from L.A., Lower Alabama, to Tallahassee for my dad to pastor a local church here. And so I grew up in the church, although sadly my mom and dad divorced when I was little, and then my father got cancer and died as a young man. But still my mama kept me in church, and I stayed in the church. And I remember when I was in the second grade, we were attending one of the bigger churches here in town, and I just remembered that feeling that compulsion and that need that I wanted to go forward. I wanted to commit my life to Christ. I didn't fully understand it as a second grader, but I still knew that I wanted God in my life, and I wanted what He'd done for me on that cross. And even then I knew I was a pretty sorry scoundrel. I needed some forgiveness.
So you believe that children can really make a profession of faith?
Absolutely, I do. And in fact, I believe in some ways it's easier, because the older we get, the more we start relying on ourselves or the other trappings and deceits of this world to draw us, as opposed to just that one true voice of God.
Talking about the deceits of the world, you were blessed to be born into a Christian home.
Yes, ma'am.
And you came to the Lord at a young age.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you follow Him all this time, or have you got off the path a little bit sometimes?
A great question, but the reality is that yes, I've always tried. Have I always done good at it? No. And are there some things in my life that I absolutely regret and are shameful for? Absolutely. But even those, I think God in His infinite wisdom uses to allow us to understand, see there, when I leave you alone, you're in trouble.
Yes.
You need me every minute, every hour, every minute of every day.
Yes.
We need Him.
Yes.
And so, I've always tried. Again, I haven't always succeeded to this day. I don't think I succeed to the level I wish I did.
Praise God for His mercy.
Amen.
For His mercy, because when we get off track and when we do wrong, we can go to the Lord and be quick to repent, and He will forgive us and cleanse us for all unrighteousness. That's hard for us to comprehend, I know. But it really is true, and it really does happen. Tell me more about yourself. Where did you go to college at?
Here at Florida State.
Florida State.
I grew up here, as you said, homegrown boy. I love Tallahassee, but grew up in Tallahassee, went to North Florida Christian School, which was absolutely foundational, and for me, just so much Bible and so many godly people that just poured into my life and invested in me and just gave me example and role models to live after and just encouragement. And but then I went to Florida State and wound up, because I didn't really know what I was going to do, had all kind of ideas like most of us do when we're young. Just finally got a business degree, so I said, well, you need business no matter what you do in life. And then in my senior year, my stepfather was a firefighter here in town, and the city was advertising for police officers. And he kind of said, well, have you ever thought about being a police officer? And at first I said, no, sir. And, because just the dangers and the things that are involved. Right. Plus I was in business school and thought about, maybe law school or being a developer or something. Who knows? Just we always had big money ideas, but that thought just started settling with me. Another man that was just absolutely instrumental in the formation of me as a man was in my church, was a lieutenant at the police department, and I just thought the world of him. One of my best friend's older brother was a police officer, so I did a ride along with him one day. And it just kind of stuck.
God just set you up.
He did. He set me up well. He set me up well. But and then what young person, especially young boys, I think, but young boys and girls doesn't grow up sometimes wanting to be that hero police officer that comes in and saves the day or whatever, and playing cops and robbers as a kid. But it actually just stayed with me and would not leave. And I applied, did not get hired. Applied again and got hired the second time, and wasn't even sure I'd make a career of it, but absolutely fell in love with it and realized that it absolutely was a calling, and one that I am eternally grateful for.
Man, I know you've got a lot of stories.
Have a few.
Being a police officer, is there one incident that you can share with us where you saw the hand of God?
To be honest, the whole career, and I'll say that in this thing, my life verse is Psalm 73:26, and it says, "My flesh and my heart fail." But then it goes on to say, "But God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." And at the beginning of my career, the night before I was to start at the police academy, some friends of my church had given me a morning and evening Charles Spurgeon devotional book that I have read no telling how many times, still do to this day. And but in my devotions, the night before I was to start, I was a little apprehensive about it, and even some of my church friends were like, "Oh, Kelly, we're worried about you. It's a tough business, and it's going to make you cynical, and you're going to lose." And I'm just like, wait a minute. To me, though, I thought this was a high calling and a good, noble thing to do. And then that night, the enemy just tried to attack me and just tried to say, I'm going to do things to you and show you things, and I'm going to overwhelm you, and you're going to get beat up and spit on and hurt and all this kind of stuff, and just fear started seizing me. And that verse God brought to my mind, and it spoke to me for the first time in such a powerful way that it said, "Have I not brought you to this point? And will I ever leave you or forsake you? Have I not promised to be with you as you go forward? Calm down and let's go." And a peace came over me that is absolutely supernatural. There's no other way to describe it. And I rested then. And then I say for the course of my career, then during the course of my career, at probably the six-year mark, one of the first officers, Officer Ernie Ponce de Leon, was killed in the line of duty on July 8th, 1988. And the very next day, my pastor, my spiritual mentor, my hero in the faith, died. So those 2 days, 2 very, very dark days for me. But that verse came to my mind. Then go forward another year and a half later, my wife has a heart transplant.
Oh.
And we've got a 6-month-old baby, and I am absolutely overwhelmed. Like, what am I going to do? Worried I'm going to lose my wife. Worried, what am I going to do as a young man with a baby? And that verse came to mind. And then years later, Sergeant Dale Green, a personal friend of mine, was killed in the line of duty, and again that verse. And so
It's
God's
carried you through the
faithfulness,
years.
and then God also giving me opportunity to demonstrate His love in real practical ways that nobody had. I mean, I remember one night finding a lady and her son sleeping in a car at Christmas, and I couldn't stand it. And one of my officers, I was a sergeant, one of my officers called me and said, "Sergeant, meet me over here." And he found him sleeping in his car. He goes, "What do we do?" And I didn't, but then I thought about it, and I said, "Hey, my church is not far. We have it was a parsonage, but it wasn't being used for that. It was being used as a youth building and all." I said, "They can sleep there for a night or two or as long as they need." And that's what we did. So God you can't put Him in a box.
Right.
And He will demonstrate Himself and reveal Himself. And I'm just like that kid that's kind of peeking in the circus tent and just blown away at His glory. But He's a very faithful and good God.
Did you ever have the chance to share Him with anybody?
I did.
Who's working as a policeman?
I did. Obviously with fellow officers. We had that opportunity at times, and then even with, especially when I worked in our narcotics section for a while, and with those defendants in particular, you have an opportunity to sometimes, if they're willing to spend a lot of time with, because that's how it works to some degree. Sometimes they will say, "Okay, you got me. If I help you get others, will you help reduce my,
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time with some people, and for a long time, it's been a while now, but I mean, I've been retired several years now, but for the longest time, on a couple of them's anniversary of when, quote unquote, they got caught, I had at least 2 gentlemen that would call me and just say, "Best thing that ever happened to me was getting caught." Because it was able to, they were on a downward spiral.
Right.
The enemy had them and was destroying their life, and so they kind of bottomed out, but they took advantage of the lifelines and the lifeline,
Right.
and they grabbed a hold of that, and it changed their lives.
Satan may come to kill, steal, and destroy, but God came to give life and life more abundantly, right?
Amen. Absolutely.
Well, how many years did you put in with the force?
25.
25. Wow. I know it was sort of hard to retire. It become a way of life with you, wasn't it?
Well, quite candidly, that's another way that God demonstrated His faithfulness, because it's a very long story. I won't go into all of it, but I had opportunity there within the police department, and had actually been accepted to the FBI National Academy, and considered staying beyond my quote official retirement date. That was just my earliest retirement at 25 years, but through a process of a couple of months and a council of elders and a lot of prayer and just earnestly seeking the Lord, He finally told me to let it go. And I went on staff at a local church, and then been wound up at the Billy Graham Association
Yeah, I
a
was
few
going to
years
ask
after
you
that.
about that.
Yes,
Tell us
ma'am.
about the Billy Graham Association and how you got involved.
Well, after I retired from the police department, like I said, I was working at a church and serving as a staff pastor and doing everything from counseling and ministry to cutting the grass.
You name it, you did it.
Exactly. And but I still had a heart. And I mean, I absolutely love my police career. Absolutely love law enforcement and the men and women of law enforcement. And so my heart was still drawn to them so strong. And found out about a class called Critical Incident Stress Management, called Law Enforcement Perspectives, on how you teach people to deal with officers that are going through crisis. And long story short, again, I tried to pursue that class and found out that the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association was offering it at their chaplain's retreat. And I went to that chaplain's retreat. It's disaster chaplaincy. And wow, life took a whole nother huge turn. And he took me to mountaintops again that I'd have never even seen.
Oh, wow. Can you real quickly share one of those mountaintop experiences with us?
Sure. You mentioned did I ever get the chance to share, but in Haiti, after the earthquakes, we were down there, and Haiti actually was blessed, and I do say blessed to go, although it was very hard to watch and see. Still, just in the middle of that, that's what I love so much about how God works, is in the middle of the deepest and darkest chaos and confusion and darkness, sometimes God's light will show up. But in Haiti, had opportunity, we were there working with the medical teams and going out into the camps and off you will. And a man came running up one day and says, Chaplain, please come with me. But again, long story short, we ran across the street into the village's old mud hut, and a lady was in there, and obviously she was very close to death. But we were able to talk to her, had a nurse with me, and we were just able to, and I just held up my Bible. The man was an interpreter for us. I said, do you want to know the God of this Bible that loved you so much that He sent His Son to forgive you of your sins and offer you an eternal home? And in a few moments, you may spend eternity with Him, and all this pain and suffering and sickness will be over. And she said yes, and then some others in the group said yes, and it was just, I'd have been no other place in the world that moment than right there.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
This is your life. It's quite a story. You feel like that God can use all of us?
I know He can, because it's not about us, it's about Him.
Right.
And He loves each and every one of us. Nobody's got him cornered the market on God's love.
Your footsteps can be ordered and directed by the Lord. Will you let Him? This is Bobby and Frank saying God really loves you, and so do we. Welcome, friends, to This Is Your Life. This is Bobby, and we have with us today in our studio Kasey Gordon. Kasey, welcome to This Is Your Life. Kasey, how long have you been a Christian?
For only about 4 years.
Wow!
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your life a little bit before then. Did you have a normal childhood?
I did. I grew up in a Christian, well, my mom was a Christian and grew up in church. Kids church, youth group. So I had got saved, when I was 8, but then at about 13, we quit going to church. Well, we quit going to church, and then I just remember having regular teenage years. I did well in school, and but lost my way starting around 18, and it was, so I grew up in church, but I didn't hang on to it.
Right.
You know, by the time your relationship starts to, you have to make one of your own.
Right.
Around the preteen years,
Yeah.
we stopped going, and I kind of lost that connection with God in the church.
Well, you highly recommend people bringing children up into church.
Oh yeah, it's a foundation.
Yes.
You always remember.
Yeah.
I did. I know it had a big part to play in what brought me back.
Even though people do grow up maybe in the church, where they do or where they don't, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Mm-hmm. And I know he came to steal some things from Kasey and try to destroy her having a walk with the Lord. Tell us a little bit about that, Kasey.
When I was in college, I met my girl's father, and it was an abusive relationship. It was years of verbal, emotional abuse, and just being felt like you're worthless. And if I can back up before then, see, my mom left when I was in high school. So I battled with some rejection. So when I met my daughter's father, I was already struggling with that rejection, being hurt, and then when you find yourself with somebody who kind of preys on that and treats you bad. So I dealt with that for about 7 years.
Goodness.
Yeah, a long time of being told, no good, you're no good, for a long time.
So you was in an abusive relationship, wasn't you?
Yeah.
Was it verbal and physical? Or?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's no excuse for that. Listeners, viewers, God will forgive you if you repent, and He will wash you and cleanse you from all unrighteousness. But there's no excuse for somebody laying a hand on another one unless it's in self-defense. But thank God we have a merciful, forgiving God, and He evidently healed you. But how did He go about doing that?
Well, so it was years of just those deep wounds, just... You make bad decisions.
Inferior, didn't you?
Oh yeah, you make bad decisions. You're offended a lot. There's all kinds of things that stem off being abused by somebody, being told you're worthless. That you make choices, bad choices, because you don't see yourself as worthy. And this went on for after we split up, and after we split up, then it was still a few more years of just acting crazy and not seeing my worth, until one day my girls asked me to go to church because their grandfather was taking them. I didn't go, but they wanted me to go with them, so I did. But I remember the first Sunday that I went, there was a peace in church, something I had been missing that I had years ago, a familiarness, that's what I should say. And so I continued to go. I liked it. I liked the way I felt when I was there, as opposed to when I was back living the way I was living. There was a definite difference between being in the presence of God and feeling loved, and then living wrong and feeling that hurt that would come back. And I remember sitting and thinking about it, and God spoke to me clearly, and He said, you can't have a relationship with me and continue to live the way you're living. Like, here's a choice. You've got a two-way street, and you got to pick one. And I knew what I wanted. I was at that point. You get to a point, you feel God tugging at you, and then the choice has to be made, but He's already been drawing you long enough to where when you jump, you're ready to jump. And I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted the Lord, and I jumped in with both feet and never turned back. I stayed just straight for God and dug into the Word, met some really good Christian friends. This was in South Florida, and that was 4 years ago. But
and then He healed you emotionally.
Oh, that took time. That's not an overnight, thing. God, He did change me. I did start to see things restored very quickly. Just new friends, people close to you. I got a great job. It's just, so I saw the restoration in my life, but it takes a little while for Him to let things surface that have been buried very deep.
Right.
So over these past 4 years, even recently, He still shows me things that I didn't realize I had a problem. Critical recently. Oh, that was a hard pill to swallow too. Of being shown that I can be critical of someone, and I was listening to a pastor, and I knew that the Lord was using him to speak right to me, but I think I battled with a little bit of unforgiveness, and once that surfaced and I got to ask God to forgive me, and also I let go of all the unforgiveness. You know, you call it out if there's any unforgiveness. It was like a weight was lifted. So it's a process.
Yes.
I've never ever told anyone that when they get saved it's an overnight success and you're healed of all these things, but God has his way with each person. It's different.
Yes.
And he will show you
He meets
where
you
you
at the
need to
point
work.
of your need, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a few questions. How many children? You have one daughter?
Two.
Or two
I have
daughters?
two. Mm-hmm.
How old are they?
11 and 14.
Oh, wow. Great ages.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did they want to move back here? You said you was in South Florida. Did you get some resistance that way?
Oh, they were little. So no, they were fine with moving.
Do you have family here?
No, I actually grew up in Kansas City, and
Oh,
they're all
wow.
still there. Yeah, I came here years ago because the weather. I mean, it was nice, and vacationed here and stuff. So.
Well, I'm sure just from your demeanor in talking to you that you have forgiven your ex-husband
I have, yeah.
of the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have any contact? Does he realize the wrong he did yet?
Who knows? Probably once or twice. I think he's mentioned it, but no, not really. Not that much contact. But yeah, I have. I've forgiven, and that's through God. You can get very bitter and angry when you think that you're wronged,
Right.
and I think the Lord showed me how. But for the grace of God, you know, I know the stuff I've done to people,
Yeah.
so that could easily have been me. So.
Well, you're a very beautiful young lady, and I know God's got a big, big, beautiful picture for you in the future. I know he does. Are you rooted and grounded in a church right now?
I am. I attend Church 360.
Oh, yes, I have heard of that here
Yeah.
in town. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're growing. We're small, but we're in the process of growing and changing things and building. So, and
Does-
that's fun. That part's fun.
Do they have a good youth program for your
Yeah,
daughter?
yeah. There's not a lot of youth in there right now, but I see the potential. But
Right.
it's good.
Right.
Everybody there is strong, on fire Christians.
Right. Well, let's go back a little bit and talk about the abuse area.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine there was a lot of crying, a lot of nights probably that you cried yourself to sleep and you felt unworthy. You felt like you wasn't as good as everybody else. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you feel at fault. You feel
Like you don't do anything right?
yeah, like you're to blame for why this bad thing is happening. If you could just have done this differently or not done this, then and it wouldn't have happened. So there's a lot of guilt.
Well,
on
what
you.
would you say to the ladies out there that are listening that may be battling abuse?
Don't waste that time letting someone tear you down. It's because they don't see worth in their self, which is sad, so they have to make somebody else feel as bad as they do. So I would say not to waste the time and the years I did figuring out that you are worth everything, that there's somebody out there that God has for you, that if you just that he will make a way with. Okay, sorry.
There is no
you can
way.
edit. I'm so sorry.
Right, he'll make a way where there is
That it's
no
not
way.
hopeless. That there's always a way out, even though it looks like there's not. Somebody would like to make you think that there's not a way out, but there always is, and God will show you. He will.
Yes. Well, when you went to move here, did you know anybody here, or how
I
did
knew
you
Larry.
I
knew Larry,
and
yeah.
so you moved here through knowing Larry Mullender.
Yeah.
Larry Mullender is a guest that we've had on our program recently. Viewers, if you've missed the interview, we sorry you missed it, but you can pick
Great
it up
man.
on YouTube, and we'll bring it back. He's a great man of God. So you came here really as a result of knowing Larry
Yeah.
to Tallahassee. How long did it take you to get established here?
Not long, pretty quick. I waitressed for a while and got an interview here at Altrua with a referral from Larry, but they didn't hire me right away. They filled it with somebody else, and I remember, this is another God story. Since I was waitressing, I told God, I said, oh, and let me just tell you, you can be very specific with God. You can let him know exactly what you need, because that's what I do. And I remember I was sitting down and I said, Lord, I need a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, so I can be home in the evenings. I need benefits. I mean, there was just things that I needed, and I laid it out. And I remember talking to my mom, and she's like, well, let's come into agreement about that. And
so here you are.
Yeah, it took about a month or so, but as it turned out, Melody ended up calling me, and I got a second interview, and she ended up hiring me. So
you really believe our footsteps are ordered and directed by the Lord?
I do. I believe that even when we get ahead of him a little bit, he was already in front of that mistake anyways, when it doesn't work out, or you didn't seem to hear him right, so you tried a different
Do you believe
idea.
that he's a very present help in times of need?
Yes, I do.
He was for you, wasn't he?
Oh, he's so
And
good.
He'll be for you too. It has been such an honor having you here today. Thank you so much
you're
for
welcome.
coming. Thank you, viewers, for watching. I pray you have been blessed by the interview like I have. This is Bobby and Frank saying, God loves you. Yes, I'm talking to you. And so do we.